Hi, I'm Rachel. So, we're going to talk about ways to bring in other money because we all know grants are good. You know, I help run the Gwyntamore and the Rill Flats and North Hoyle schemes. We know they're brilliant, but there are times that you need additional money coming into your organisation. So when we talk about the different money streams that you can work with, we've got things like actual fundraising activities. We've all seen bake sales and all sorts of summer fetes and things, and we'll go into more detail about how you can be a bit more creative on that. Going to go into details around, not too many details, it's a really short session. This is usually a 2-hour session that I run, so we're squashing it into 45 minutes, unfortunately. So more about online and how you can bring in money through that and the changing online situation at the moment. Going to touch on legacies, but not a huge amount, and we'll come to why. And different ways around bringing in sales or commissions and different things in your organisation if it's set up in a way that could do that. Something on a little bit on investments and a little bit on sponsorship, but I'm not going to touch too much on the sponsorship either because you've got another session coming up that's around bringing in company sponsorships and things. So starting more with getting out there in the community. Now, since COVID and the cost of living, we know there's so limited amounts of spare cash in anyone's pocket these days. So it is difficult, and the collection tins and things, everyone's suffering. You'll see at the supermarket now, people are trying everything to try and bring that money into the organisation. But you're in a difficult field. So it's looking at different ways that you could bring that money in that's more than what we used to do. You know, we need to be a little bit more creative now. And look at ways that people can get something back. So I think that's what everyone's looking for, is if you are going to spend money in charities, they like a little something to go with. So things like ticketed events are working really well, or getting out in the community and just having a chat with people, a couple of freebies, or doing a little bit out there and bringing the money in. I've got Guess the Teddy and all those things on there, and there's still a valid way of bringing. You know, for smaller groups, it's a valid way of bringing some money in there, but we'll get onto in a bit bigger events and things and how you manage that. Things like race nights and, you know, out for meals and events and things that you've got theatre productions or something. As well as being out in the community and getting those events and things going, I wanted to look at online and the different options there, because sometimes we think that's quite limited, but there are ways now of getting that communication with people. And I think with all donations and all that income generation, it's about building relationships, whether it's in the small scale of the moment, and you're out in the supermarket collecting, or whether it's online. You need to make that connection with people. And it's how we tell our story quite often in all of this that really matters, because you're in a field now with a lot of different organisations, particularly these larger national organisations that you can't even press pay at a supermarket without it popping up saying, would you like to donate to this? Would you like to donate to that? And we can't all get involved in that way, but we can find other ways of being online and getting that money in. Facebook have actually changed their birthday donation thing since I did this presentation last, but there are ways of using social media to bring those donations in. An increasing amount of crowdfunding websites, and I will cover some of those in a little bit, but that's another way in which you can, for a specific project, it's a really good way to do this, because you'll know what you want to get out of it. You'll know what the outcomes are going to be, and it's important to sell that story to people. Remember, your organisation is not the hero in all this. I say this every time I do training. You're not the hero. You are heroes. You are heroes to us, but to the people in the community, it's about what work you do. It's about the people that you support, and it's telling that story. It's telling that story sometimes in their words, if you can. You know, maybe not with their images, maybe keeping anonymous, but making it as real as possible. People want to know what you're going to do with that money that they donate to you. Some of the supermarkets have a really great way of, you just put little coins into bins, and they'll make donations that way. But there's also ways of doing that online, where there's shopping apps and things where they will donate to charities. So we'll come to some detail in a bit. If you've got a website, if you've got Facebook pages, if you've got any kind of social media, make sure you've got access to donation buttons that people can press really quickly and be able to pay into your organisation. It might not bring in a lot, but what it does bring in is nice. And you've got to make things convenient for people these days. We're all looking for the easiest, convenient way to do things. So nobody's going to jump through 3 hoops to give you some money. But if you make it nice and simple, and you're there, online, clear, what you're going to do with it, it's a lot easier to bring that money in. We see an increasing use, you'll see around the room today, QR codes are everywhere, and it is the quickest way to get people to your website or your details online somewhere. And it's well worth getting that out. If you're having an event, even if it's not a fundraising event, have a think about how you might just bring in a little bit to support that through that. And just having those codes to get people through to your donation button's really useful. One of the more interesting ways people are making money at the moment is through lots of streaming events online and gaming events. And I think some of us in the room are a little older here, and we're not maybe of that gaming community, but it's worth having a look at. National Mind last year made 1.3 million out of streaming events of streaming gaming online. So that's people paying to watch someone else play a game, which is incredible to me. I am a gamer, but I still will not watch someone else play a game. But those options are out there. Not for everyone, definitely not for everyone. But, you know, a little bit of creativity, and suddenly you've created some new way that funding comes in. And it's worth keeping an eye on how the gaming and income from online really is going to start growing over the next few years. So looking at crowdfunding now, and it's a real good way to bring in revenue to your organisation that's unrestricted. So if you're planning something new, you've got pilot projects in the pipeline, or it's something you struggle to get any kind of payment for, this is a really good way to go as an alternate to grants, because you are directly putting that information out there of what will be the benefit of your project, and people are paying in advance to see that come to life. Sometimes you'll find people, if you're in an arty organisation, music and things, you can actually link this in with a benefit. You could have a little private viewing of your art or something that they would get if they paid into this crowdfunding, or they might get a signed picture, or they might get a little performance of music or something. If you're not arty, you could think of other ways that people could benefit, because I think that the best outcomes come from when it's a mutual arrangement. They get something from you, you pay in. So things like Big Issue use that kind of platform already, that you buy a big issue because you enjoy reading it, and people get the money. But you can do the same online with crowdfunding. At the same time, you don't always have to give that little incentive. It could be that you just got a good story that you really want to get out there to people, that you're going to really, really change people's lives from. And I think getting a good story there, people will see it. And of course, the advantage of things like crowdfunding is you're not limited to just Conwy County, you're not limited to just North Wales. The world's your oyster online. The bigger you can get that message out there, the more chance you've got somebody will pay into it. But, just on the off chance, somebody might just come across it in Australia or New Zealand and think, that's a great story, let's put a little bit of money to that. Different crowdfunding platforms suit different things, and I think it's well worth looking at which suits you, because they will all be taking some money out of the donation one way or the other. So some take a percentage off every donation given, some take a percentage out of the whole, some you pay up front so much money. So don't just rely on one and just go with that. Have a good look at the different options. CBSC have got a little sheet, we've put together a little information sheet, so if you're interested in the crowdfunding, get in touch with us afterwards and we'll get that sheet of information out to you, and it's got some of the percentages that people take off, just to give you a little bit more background before you make your decisions. So talk about other ways of online. We've got things like easy fundraising, which is just is an app people put onto the phones and the tablets and the laptops. And if you're buying online from some of these big companies that I don't want to name, but we all know them, you can get some of the percentage of that goes to the charity that you nominate. And you can nominate your own charities, you can nominate somebody else's charity that money goes to. CBSC have got an easy fundraising set up, so if anyone did want to donate to us, you can do that through your shopping, but you can also set that up for your own organisations and bring that money into yourself, and then promote it through your friends, your family, your beneficiaries, their friends, families. You know, we're all linked in to lots and lots of people just by the people that you've got in your volunteers. They've got family, they've got friends, and keep promoting it that way so that everyone's sort of you're just getting that little bit through that can sit in your reserves. It's there when you need it. It's there when you need that little pilot project to get going. The other option we've got is Lotto Lucas, and if you've not been to the stall yet downstairs and signed up, there's an opportunity to today, so all the information's there with my colleague Phil. And again, that's a way that you can promote through to your beneficiaries and the families and friends and contacts of beneficiaries, that they can buy lottery tickets that you then, as an organisation, get a percentage of, without actually doing very much work yourself at all, other than promotion. So why not sign up? A lot of the activities we look at for bringing for fundraising in the community, it is worth checking whether you're following the law on these and the legal structures. I know we come across year after year people running a raffle, and it's a really great way of bringing money to your organisation, but you do not want to fall foul of gambling regulations. Did you know if you're running a raffle, you have to sell the tickets on the same day as you draw whoever the winner is? If you don't do that, you actually need a gambling licence. So if you want to run a raffle over a week, a month, a year, you're going to need a gambling licence for that. So it's making sure that you don't fall foul of these legal structures while trying to bring money into the organisation. There's also very clear regulations around things like if you have a race night for, because that involves gambling, betting on the horses and things, you'll need to make sure that you're following regulations. But don't worry, there is nice, simple explanations of all these, both on the Gambling Commission website, and you can actually go to Charity Commission and they've got lots of information about what is possible, what isn't possible on this. So you get your ideas together as your committee, you get excited about it, but make sure you check if you're actually following the right regulations on these, because you don't want to lose all that money that you've worked so hard to bring in. I said I would cover a little bit on legacies, mainly because with increasingly, you will see a lot of adverts on television about this from the larger charities. They'll offer things like a will writing service. And the reason they offer that is so that you've got that incentive to then pop them in the will for a little percentage of what you're leaving behind to your loved ones, a little bit go to a charity as well. And it's really seen as a growth area of fundraising this. But it comes with caveats. It takes a lot of time to build up those relationships with people. It's a difficult conversation to have, so it's not for everyone. And it can take a long time because you have obviously got to wait until that person is deceased and gone through all of the will and everything before the money comes back. It might be 20 years before you saw any money coming into your organisation, having had those conversations and got that will set up and got that donation on its way. So if you're not thinking long term as an organisation, this is probably not for you. If you're a very small organisation, I'd say this is possibly not for you. But it doesn't discount just having those relationships with people anytime you can, networking with people, let them know about your organisation, because you never know. Sometimes a great big donation lands in some nice little organisations just by the fact that someone knew about you. So with this and with everything else, it's a lot of it is about how you promote yourself, how you get your message out there, how you tell your story, and how you ask for help. And there needs to be that request for help, otherwise people don't know that you need money. They think that it might, there's still a lot of people out there think councils are still offering lots of grants, that there's a lot of money available. We know in this room, we know in this building today that is not the case, and that it's getting harder and harder to fund what you need to do in the community, and those needs in the community go up as the money available is sadly reducing. But yet, best to think about this kind of route only if you've got the time, if you've got the capacity, if you've got the patience for it, and if you can wait a while. Other options are obviously going to be a lot better for most organisations in this room. But didn't want to do the whole thing without this being, because there is a lot of talk about the wills and the donations and the legacies at the moment. Other routes are sort of building on your own workplace and other people's. There's a lot of people in the community that are in workplaces that might want to look at adopting a charity, adopting a local community group that does a lot of good, and maybe they do the fundraising for you. Again, this is a nice labour unintense way of working. You build a relationship with the companies, with the organisations, with the businesses out there, and they do their own little bits of fun. They might come up with really exciting ways of doing a bit of fundraising and having like a meal or going out doing something, doing a sponsored walk or whatever, as an organisation that could then pay into you. And it goes, yet again, it's about how you spend your time developing that network, developing those relationships with different organisations. And it's nice to do that with local organisations, because you all cover a very specific part of the community, and finding the right organisation that works with your criteria, with your beneficiaries, could really work there. There's also options. We know organisations out there that take donations from businesses, whether that's raw materials or actual products, and then use that in-kind donation from the organisation, from the business, to sell at craft fairs, to make things. All the men's sheds out there are taking commissions on this. They're getting donations of raw material to then turn into something beautiful as a piece of art, or something amazing as a piece of furniture that can then be sold out there. So that's a good option as well. And building that relationship with people who could provide things like that is really useful. I mentioned that, it might be workplaces themselves that might want to do some sponsored events for you and things. Some of them also have things like Charity of the Year, where they'll do little bits of fundraising throughout the year, and at the end of the year they'll give a percentage to you, maybe a percentage to 3 other charities in the area and things. If you don't make those networks, these things don't happen. I understand it's difficult. We've all got, we spend so much time on the front line, it is difficult to tell that story to others and get out, but just putting a few days a year aside to maybe do some connections with that, make some little, talk to the people that you work with. They might have connections, Actually, years ago when I was doing my nursery training, we talked about how you never know what people are, you know, the parents of the 3-year-olds I used to teach. One of them was a magician. He used to come every year, do a show for us, in-kind donation, saved a fortune. You never know those people that are out there in the community that might want to help, and they don't know you unless you're out there talking to them. Not going to do much on this. We all know gift aid exists. It's not for everyone again. But if you are taking commissions, doing a bit of sales out there, or if you are taking donations, it's well worth looking at this as an option. It's 25% extra for nothing, just for filling a form in. So well worth looking at if you're not doing that already and you are out there either selling things or bringing in donations, then you should be looking at if they're a taxpayer in the UK, they can gift aid that and gift aid their tax to you rather than going to the government. Like I say, the corporation stuff, we're actually covering again in a different capacity around sponsorships in another session. But there are so many other ways of like really working with local businesses out there and building that way of going about it. I've actually, in the past, in other organisations I've been running, had really good response to things like working with a local restaurant to build a charity evening that everyone gets a meal, has a great chance of networking. You can bring in some of your dignitaries from the area that will attract more people to come to it. And it's a really good way of, the restaurant loves it because they're promoting themselves, so they're giving a donation to you as part of that. But really, you know, they know they're going to get repeat customers, so it's good for them, it's good for you, and you're talking again about those mutual benefits that you can get. And I think that's always the key with this, is that everyone wins if you can arrange it that way, that you know what they need out of it, they know what you need. It's a really good system that you can build a long-standing partnership with, not just a one-off. Then they might want to come back, and it can build over the years into more of this fundraising for you, sponsoring you, workplace giving, other options that might happen. It's also a great chance for them to advertise, remember. So don't sell yourself short. I think a lot of the times as charities, we don't put a huge price on ourselves. And I think we've got to realise that, you know, we're doing an amazing job out there. And if a business is coming to you wanting to support you, don't sell yourself short on it. You know, give yourself a real option of helping them, because it's great advertising for them. A lot of organisations are worried about earned income and think they're not big enough for this, and they'll have to set up a separate enterprise arm. But if you're only bringing a small amount of your income through sales, you don't need to change anything other than make sure that your constitution covers that, you know, that your governing document says that you might be selling things out in the community. Because as long as you've got good finance structure and you can show that it's less than 50% of your income, you don't need a separate business arm for this. You don't need separate governance systems. And I know little organisations out there that are making quite a good income for themselves out of craft fairs and things, or, you know, if they've got either beneficiaries that are making things, or they've got a link with someone in the community who wants to make things for them. You know, there's people out there like a little bit of knitting, and they might make you some special little things to sell at sales. Christmas markets coming up, and it might not be a huge amount of money, but it's not a huge amount of time either that way. So every penny's coming back to you and is really useful. And again, remember, everything that you make through things like this, it's unrestricted money. It has the added advantage that you can use it how you see fit in your organisation. You're not tied to any regulations with it. We're seeing increasingly that organisations are trying to sell merchandise. You see it in a lot of the sports clubs. They've obviously always had this, but there's always options of being able to sell some items that might be related to what you do, setting up an online shop within your website's not that complicated, and really could work well. Or you look at sort of working with another organisation that might be able to sell things for you. You know, you could do deals with your local shops and they could sell some merchandise for you and you get percentages, or you get the whole amount and they're just charging for that space within their shop. Lost where on? Investments are the big one. A lot of the organisations I know here today are not going to be at this level. But like I say, if you are building those relationships up with people and with the potential donors for the future, you might get a hefty little donation at some point. And you don't want to spend it all at once, and you don't want to leave it in a bank account these days because it's doing nothing for you in there. You're not getting any interest anymore. So it's worth looking at other options. I know organisations locally have just landed like a £70,000 donation out of the blue, and it's worth having a think about what you'd do if you were that lucky, and where, you know, how you can make the most out of that. You don't want it to just be a one-off payment. It's much better if it can release money year on year on year to bring that sustainability into your organisation. I've put some weird things on here like metals, because actually people think, you know, putting it into stocks and shares might be the way, and actually there's some very precious metals out there that make a good investment. I am not the person to give this advice. I don't know anything about investments, and you do need to take that advice before you get into anything, because of course with everything you can either make a gain or a loss. Also, if you are investing, even if you're just investing in a high interest account with your stocks and your shares and things, be careful about how much money you need to release for your organisation and when. So I started work several years ago with one organisation that had very carefully put a huge donation and some other money they had into a housing association that was building houses somewhere in the world. But they hadn't done their research, and you couldn't find out if your money had gained or lost until you'd taken it back out. So and it took 6 months to go through the process to take the money out. So you might have been at a loss, and it would not tell you at any point whether you were up, down, or what. So it did not feel like a good scheme. I don't actually know what happened, because we never quite got that money back out of the account while I was there in the organisation. And that's, you know, it's a real horror story for anyone to know that much money could be tied up and you can't get back to it, you know, and you really need it. So yeah, with everything, advice, you need to take that advice, and you need to have a good think first about what options work best for you. I don't seem to be able to click through anymore. Oh, there we are. We're back. Yes. Yeah, so before you even think about how you're going to bring money in, who you're going to talk to, what you're going to do as part of your fundraising activity, it's well worth, as a committee, as an organisation, as a group of membership, having a good sit down and thinking about your ethics. We don't talk enough about ethics in like the modern world, but it's really important. You all come from wanting to make the world a better place. That's why you volunteer and you work for the people that you do. And you don't want to do that and then take the wrong money from the wrong people and feel bad about it. So the same as you do with grants and things, and a lot of people I know have come to us and said, oh, well, you know, we don't want to take money from gambling, we don't want to take, so lotteries out, and we don't want to take money from this and that and the other. You know, have a good think about that before you even start with grants, because some of the grants obviously relate to whether it sits with your ethical policy or not. But other things as well, anything that you're doing, you know, there's charities for young people out there that haven't thought it through, and they have tombolas with alcohol on it, or, you know, you don't know who's out there in the community that's got alcohol issues, or you know, recovering from some kind of substance use. So it might be important to you, depending on what you do in that community, what your organisation's aims are, it might be that you directly do not want to be involved, particularly in that. You can go into this quite deep as well. You can even start thinking, do you want to bank with someone who's obviously backing a war somewhere in a country that you care about? So, you know, you can go into a lot of detail on the ethics of this, or you can have a quick discussion and just decide what works and what doesn't work for you. You know, do you want to run lotteries? Do you want to do some gambling nights? Do you want to do these things? Is it something that sits okay with your beneficiaries, with the people you contact, or might it just not feel quite right, you know? And if it doesn't feel quite right, use other options, you know? There is so much creativity you can think of out there that it's worth just discounting that and focusing your organisation on your beneficiaries and what your needs are. You're going to get more payback from that than trying something that could have a hat. You know, like a race night could bring you lots and lots from gambling. But if you then lose half your beneficiaries from it, or some of your organisations that support you or something, it's not worth doing. So you just need to think things through. The other thing in all of this is the amount of time you put in. You know, some things take a long time to do. This conference today took a lot of staff time for a lot of months before you get there. So everything has a value, and is it worth doing is something you've got to ask quite early on. You know, a sponsored event, a really big sponsored event, you're abseiling down a building, something really quite dangerous, could bring in a huge amount of money, but it could take a lot of time. It could take a lot of regulations that you have to sift through. You might have to look at a whole different lot of laws. Sometimes you're in an event out in public, you've got to look at the terrorism laws and make sure you're safe on that. You've got to do safeguard, and if it's young people involved, you've got to do risk assessments. Are you willing to do all of that work? Is the people on, have you got a big enough committee? Have you got enough knowledge on that committee to do it? Not trying to put you off fundraising, by the way. It sounds like I am. It's just lots and lots of questions to ask before you decide what's right for you as an organisation. Quite a lot of the time, people don't count all the costs included in that, you know, and it's not always a monetary cost either. What if it's a lot of volunteer time? What if you lose a volunteer because they've suddenly lost interest because all of their work is now about fundraising, but what they really wanted to do was come and help people in the community? So it's weighing up what works for you, and those hidden costs are really the ones that you need to try and, you know, find what that might be, because it can turn what was a great success with a lot of money coming in into a failure because you've actually spent more money at the end of the day, or it's cost you more as an organisation than it brought in. So it's thinking about it in advance. The thing that happens over and over is this mission drift. You're suddenly putting more time into the fundraising activities you've set up, or a business arm, or some kind of event, than you are about the things that matter. You know, if I spent all my time organising this conference, no one would have had advice on grants. You know, they wouldn't have had that time to support them through it. That's my main job. So you've got to look at what your role is and where you fit in within all these different ideas and options on fundraising. Some of them could be great. Some of them really fit with your organisation. Say you're already running activities for under fives. Setting up a mobile creche might be an option for a great way of bringing in money. You can sell that out to different businesses, different things that are happening in the community. You've already got trained nursery teachers and things, and it works well. But if you're an older person organisation, that would not sit well with your mission, with your aims, with your target audience. You'd be bringing in people that are already involved in your organisation. It's a lot more work, and that drift has gone off away from what you should be doing. And I worked with one organisation some time ago that had set up into a cafe, which is often quite a good option. So, you know, the charity shops and cafes happen over and over again. People set these up to make money for themselves. But this cafe took all the time of the staff and all the volunteers and all the grants, and then they weren't actually bringing in money for the actual work that they do, and everyone had drifted away into working for something else that they didn't want to do in the first place. And it's very easy, once you go down a path, you get blinkered sometimes and you want that to work, and it's very easy for that mission drift to creep in slowly, and suddenly all your focus has gone on something completely different than what you set out to do. There we go, I've got through. Anyone got questions? I can't say I'll have all the answers, but I might have some. So I'm happy to take questions, and if I don't know the answers, I'll get back to you at some point with it. Simon.
If you're doing a lottery and you need a licence to do it, to satisfy the law, is it a long and drawn out process? Is it an expensive process?
It can be, because you're going to have a gambling licence, which is going to take money up time and again. And actually, it's a lot of time on your time there, making sure that you're meeting all those regulations. And there's an easier option out there. So it's like, yes, you could do your own lottery, but if you're not that big an organisation, why set up all of that when there's options like our Lotto Lucas? It would give you all the advantages of running a lottery, but we run it for you. So, you know, it's looking at that, how much time you want to spend for yourself and how much money you want to spend. Because we do speculate to accumulate, you do put money up front, but is it going to be too much time and effort, and is it going to take too much money out for what you're going to make for it?
So a one-off is probably not feasible, but if you were doing something like a regular Christmas or summer one...
Yeah, you'll find things like St David's Hospice have got their own lottery set up, RSPCA, PDSA. These are bigger organisations that can manage it, and they've got a staff team that can actually manage all the regulations and make sure that all the money's going right, and they're doing all of that promotional and development work to go with it. But most people that are based locally as an organisation, it's not worth running your own, and which is why you know, we've developed that kind of option with Lotto Lucas, that it gives you a chance to make some money. Yes, if you set your own up, all the money would come to you, but all the work would come to you as well, and it's that balance again of just making sure you don't run before you can walk, and you're not taking too much time out of your actual job to make money for your job.
Brill, thank you.
Anyone else? I think we've got, oh yes, right to the back, Mary. We've got a microphone on its way.
Am I correct, you were talking about gift aid, and if you're registered for gift aid, am I correct in thinking that so long as the donation is less than £30, you can have up to £8,000 without having to give all the details in?
Yeah, they've made it much, much simpler. Anyone that did gift aid like 10, 15 years ago, the paperwork that used to be involved in, and every single donation had to have paperwork involved in it. Now you can just fill that in once, and up to 5 years, the organisation can claim gift aid for anything that you're donating. So it's much, much simpler now. It's a much easier process, thankfully, because again, if it takes too much time to do with those forms every single time, is it worth the 25% more if it's costing you 50% more in the time you're doing? So, yeah, thankfully, the HMRC listened to the charity sector a while back and did change the system. And, yeah, now you just need one signature with all the details of, obviously, address and things to make sure they're a UK taxpayer. And then you can claim for up to 5 years from that one form. Much easier. We had a question here, I believe.
Yeah, any advice for someone that's new to fundraising? Any do's and don'ts?
Keep it simple at first, I think. I think it's don't try too much at once. Get something, maybe have a good little brainstorm session with your beneficiaries or with your volunteers, people who are going to help you with it. get some ideas together. Yeah, I would cherry pick the simplest ideas that take the least time to get set up, to get yourself into the flow of things. But the biggest thing is getting out there in the community, telling your story about what you do for your beneficiaries, and trying to get those contacts in with maybe some local businesses, maybe some bigger charities who might help you. You've also got options like your Rotary Club, Sir Optimus, a lot of different organisations out there that will help you with fundraising and things. So maybe if you're brand new to it, don't go out on a limb on your own. Work with someone else, work with another charity that's got a little bit more confidence, and you could do 50-50 on that, or whatever split you wanted of the fundraising, and you've got a little bit of support through the process and extra pairs of hands, because it is time consuming when you're first doing this, because you've got to risk assess everything, you've got to make sure everyone's safe, whatever you're doing. So yeah, I think my advice would be work with other people and ask advice where you can, and ask as much help as you can. Don't do it all on your own. No one can run these events and fundraising on their own. We all need to support each other. Anyone else? I think we're a bit early. I can't believe I've got through it so quick. Got another one coming. Anyone else? If you want any sort of information about things like the crowdfunding and stuff, do contact us. We've got some information sheets and things, or we can point you in the right direction of where there's a lot of advice online. Charity Commission have got page after page after page after page of information about this. If it is things like gambling related activities, Gambling Commission have got page after page. Nice, simple, easy to read advice and guidance. And it's worth checking. It's always worth checking that you're doing right. But hopefully today you can use the opportunity to do a bit of networking with each other, and there might be some joint opportunities here. Like I say, you can all go in together and have a bit of a fundraising day that everyone supports each other. We're not all in competition. I think a lot of grants makes us feel like we're in competition with each other, but we're all here to help the community that's out there, and more collaboration, more partnership working, more alliancing really works well. And I think it's the future of the sector, because we're not all going to survive on our own. We need to help each other. Times are tough out there. Don't be disheartened. There's still money there, but we are working a little bit harder each year to get that money into our organisations. Any more questions? Well, looks like we're going to finish early. We'll be first in the queue for lunch.